Brexit proposals, ministers to put forward plans for new system for solving legal disputes. Ministers will put forward plans for a new system for settling legal disputes across international borders after Britain quits the EU. The move is designed to ensure that child custody cases, consumer protection issues and other civil judicial proceedings involving families or businesses in Britain and EU nations can continue to be resolved in a clear and sensible way. A document from David Davis's Department for Exiting the EU will set out the government's position on the issue ahead of the next round of Brexit negotiations next week. A government source said, "Close cooperation in this area isn't just in the interest of the UK citizens living in the EU, it's in the interest of the 3.2 million EU citizens living here in Britain. For example, with more and more families living across borders, we need to make absolutely sure that if and when problems arise, they can be reassured that cross-border laws will apply to them in a fair and sensible way. By setting out a very clear position on this, we hope that we will be able to work with the Commission to agree a reasoned approach that works for families here in Britain and across the European Union." At present, cross-border disputes including cases involving divorce, child custody and maintenance, consumer protection and business and investment issues are dealt with under judicial cooperation processes overseen by the EU. Once Britain quits the bloc in 2019, ministers want a new system that builds on the existing foundation of cooperation and respect for the rule of law. Today's document follows separate proposals announced by the government to ensure that goods and services currently approved for sale across the UK and EU can continue to be traded after Brexit. The plans published by Brexit Secretary David Davis were welcomed by business leaders. His blueprint envisaged all goods placed on the market before Brexit Day continuing to be sold in the UK and EU without extra restrictions or requirements after withdrawal, and state that the same principle should apply to services relating to these goods. Approvals granted for products like cars to be sold across the EU should remain valid, and arrangements should be made to ensure continued oversight of the safety and regulatory compliance of goods like medicines, with EU exports to the UK totalling more than £250 billion in 2016. Officials at the Department for Exiting the EU argued that this approach would avoid unnecessary disruption during the move to new long-term arrangements. A narrow approach to goods like agricultural products or food would risk significant legal uncertainty and potential disruption for businesses and consumers both in the UK and the EU. The paper warned a separate paper recommended a reciprocal agreement on continued confidentiality for official documents shared by Britain with its EU partners while it was a member state. Mr. Davis said the papers provide certainty and confidence in the UK's status as an economic powerhouse after we have left the EU and make clear that our separation from the EU and future relationship are inextricably linked. He added, "We have already begun to set out what we would like to see from a future relationship on issues such as customs and are ready to begin a formal dialogue on this and other issues." European Commission spokesman Alexander Whitesty said the publication of position papers was a positive step towards now really starting the process of negotiations, but he said any early move to talks on trade would have to be agreed by the 27 remaining EU states, adding, "There is a very clear structure in place, set by the EU 27, about how these talks should be sequenced, and that is exactly what we think should be happening now. The important thing is to realize that the clock is ticking, that we have no time to lose and that we need to get on with it." The CBI said the UK paper was a significant improvement on EU proposals which would create a severe cliff edge for goods currently on the market. The Director of EU Affairs at manufacturers' trade body the EEF, Fergus MC Reynolds, said, "The government's position is helpful as it reaffirms the concerns of the manufacturing sector to secure the continuity of goods and supply of services from 2019 onwards. Industry now wants to see this resolved as quickly as possible." And Adam Marshall, Director General of the British Chambers of Commerce, BCC, said, "Businesses here in the UK as well as on the continent will welcome the British government's desire to maintain maximum continuity in the way goods are traded when the UK withdraws from the EU." Thanks for watching. Please like, share and don't forget to subscribe English News Hub for new excited videos.